automation and operation space. And one day, I mean, things were going well, like business was good. And then one day I ended up in the ER. And while I was there, they decided I needed to spend the night. And while I was there, I started just kind of thinking about like how things have been going. I had been working like from the time I woke up till I couldn't stay up any longer. My eyes just, was like, you got to go to sleep. And so I realized that I was burned out, and this was my body's way of retaliating. And so I decided right then and there that I needed to do something different. And early in my coaching business, I talked about like success principles around productivity and goal setting and those things. And so I decided to kind of go back to that place and look at productivity as a way to combat burnout and to facilitate work life balance. And so that's kind of where I got to where I am now, which is teaching women how to structure their day using routines so they can avoid those issues, the overwhelm, the stress, the burnout, and we can be productive and kill it in our businesses.
I think that that's so powerful because I feel that over the last 4 years, people have felt it in different ways. It's not only just running our own business, it can just be feeling burnt out and stressed out just from the responsibilities of work and or life things like managing, like some people had the kids plus the spouse plus the dogs, and then everybody's in a space, and then I'm still supposed to work and be on the Zoom, and then find some kind of way to make time for myself and all those things. And I remember seeing there was almost like a trend. Not, I don't want to say a trend, but there was like a good amount of people, maybe like a year and a half, 2 years ago, that were people I followed big, like heavily on YouTube, that were just like, this isn't why I started it. It's great to make money, but I don't want to feel as if I'm having to feed this machine, or they just were
Um,
finding themselves not being motivated. How would somebody recognize, like, am I even burnt out, or what direction am I heading?
So a lot of people think burnout is just being tired. Oh, I'm so tired, I'm burned out. But no, there's a clinical definition when it comes to burnout, and that's like a prolonged exposure to stress and overwhelm. And so the exhaustion part of it is a result of the stress and overwhelm. And so when you start finding yourself being not motivated, having unexplained health issues, headaches, backaches, things like that that you can't really explain, that's also a sign of burnout. Relationship stresses and strain. When relationships start to fall apart and be strained, it could be a sign of burnout. Irritability. You just you're snappy. You don't find joys in the simple things. So it's like we only think about burnout as exhaustion, but it's much more pervasive than that. And so we do a lot of stress internally before we even recognize the outside effects of burnout. And I've talked to women who, I mean, strokes and failed marriages, all kind of things as a result of burning out.
That's so key because I think that people only think of, like, whenever I've heard of it, just like, oh, I'm always tired, and not notice all of those other signs and signals that are happening there. So when we think about, burning out, a solution can be like, what in my life can I remove, and how can I be more productive with my time? Is that the best explanation to this?
Yeah, those are absolutely some things that you can do. I talked about one time how people think they can just sleep their way out of burnout and rest their way out of burnout. No, you have to change the systems in your life in order to keep burnout at bay. Um, Taking things off your plate. That's if it's not something you must do, let it go. Say no to it. I always tell people your no is an opportunity for someone else to get a yes. So
Mm.
if there's, a good opportunity, just think about it if it's in alignment, and if not, it's okay to say no. So you have to start like putting structures in place. Uh, Definite cutoff times for work, good
Yeah.
sleep hygiene, um, healthier eating, all of those things, movement, just kind of bringing your life back into balance. So you have to fix the structures in your life before you can really combat burnout. Sleep is great and it's important, but you got to have those other supports to go with it.
I agree wholeheartedly. Like with people, they kind of sometimes give me a hard time because I'm really hard on my boundaries on certain things. But then I'm like, this is necessary for me so that I can continue to serve and find passion in what I do. Whenever I start allowing certain boundaries to be broken, then that's when I stop liking what I do.
Mm.
And then I disconnect to why I even was doing it. Why does it even matter? And it's when you start to get to that space, everything else can seem so much more fulfilling than why you set out to do whatever it is. I mean, because I can even see how sometimes, even with parenting, like when someone loves their children, but because all of these other things are just breaking those boundaries, then they find themselves being shorter to with their children. They can be mean in certain capacities or go to other extremes, and it's not because they don't love their children. It's because of how there haven't been rules and structure put around like when they're present and when they're not present there.
Right, absolutely. I can't imagine being a parent and juggling all the things that I already juggle. So, hats off to those who are in this and doing this and raising children.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. So, what are some daily habits that can help solopreneurs with boosting their productivity?
Absolutely. So I have these six things that I call the balancing acts, and there's six routines that you can start to incorporate in your day. And everybody's familiar with the first one, which is a morning routine. Taking the time before you hit the ground running, checking email and social media and all those things to ground yourself. And so I like to do three things during my morning routine. And you can use as little time with these as 15 minutes to an hour, whatever you have, an hour and a half. But 15 minutes at least, that gives you 5 minutes for each of these things. I like to do something for my mind, my body, and my soul. And so that could include things like reading for 5 minutes, uh, listening to a podcast for 5 minutes to feed my mind. My body could be stretching for 5 minutes, hydrating for 5 minutes, making a healthy breakfast for 5 minutes. And when it comes to my soul, I like to journal or I pray or meditate for 5 minutes. And as in little as 15 minutes, it can start building this momentum where you can start starting your day uh, with I guess, not stressed mentality. I think that when we get up and we start going immediately, that puts us in a state of stress. So I like to start the mornings kind of slow, and so start with the morning routine. I also have several other routines: mindful movement, at least 15 minutes a day, where you're doing something for your body, far as exercise is concerned. So this is a little different from what you might do in your morning routine. This is intentional exercise. I also have a routine. It's called the Daily Connect. For business owners, it's really easy to start feeling isolated and lonely. And so I encourage people to reach out to someone, make a connection, call someone, maybe go out to lunch, anything to strengthen your relationships during that time. And so when you can just start layering these things in, it can start to swing the pendulum back to a place of balance. And I know the cool thing to say, oh, there's no such thing as work life balance these days. That's what a lot of people are saying. But it's not about equal amounts of time in
Mm.
areas. It's about giving the area the time it needs. Maybe that area only needs a couple hours a day, and this one may need more. It's about balancing out the time for the activity uh, that it needs, not an equal amount of time. It's more like equity, if you're familiar with that concept. Like some people may need more to be equal. It's
Yeah.
kind of like that thing.
And I think that that's so important that you brought up because even yesterday, my sister called me and we ended up being on like an hour and a half call at the end of the day. And like how you said, I've kind of let go of the term work life balance. What I just try to do is be present in the moments when I'm going to be present and do my best in those moments. So if I have time that's dedicated to work, I'm doing my best in those times to effectively use that time. But then also not letting go of my commitment to being a present sibling. So, like, well, anytime when I'm busy, do I answer the phone? No, but I also had to almost train family and friends. Like, if I don't answer, it does not mean that I don't want you to call. It doesn't mean that you're bothering me. It just means that right now I cannot stop what I'm doing to have a call because if I'm doing a call with them, I'm not working. So I am not one
Right.
of those people that can do the call and then do work
Oh,
and
me
I,
either.
no, I can't do that. I know that about myself. But so like after we did the call, I was just like, okay, that was worth the sacrifice. Like it might have been an hour
Mhm.
that I wasn't really allocate, like thinking I was going to be using towards personal, but still I made that choice knowing the cost of that. And I think too, that's where when we are talking about our personal goals or this work life balance, we can look at it from a space of I'm choosing to do something compared to like I'm a victim to my schedule, essentially. Is that a
Right.
good way to explain it?
Absolutely. So I see structure as freedom. So some people think of having a structured day as a burden. I see it as freedom because now I can allocate the time that I have left any way that I like. And I can move my blocks around to accommodate whatever I have going on that day. So structure is not about rigid rules. It's about creating these containers to get the things done that you need done.
I love that you said that. And that leads perfectly into this next question is what time management techniques are most effective for solopreneurs when it comes to productivity?
Absolutely. Time blocking is a big one. Like setting blocks of time, working in blocks of time. Maybe this is a content creation block, and this is a one of the other balancing acts I have is called a Focus 48. It's where you block off about an hour in your calendar and you get in 48 minutes of flow work, turn off all the notifications and just spend this time working on goals that are going to move the business forward. This is not client work time. This is not social media time. This is about working in those areas of your business that we often neglect because we're so busy working in the business we don't get to work on the business. So setting aside dedicated time for the things that are important during using time blocks is critical. And I'm a paper person, so I write a lot of my things down, and that helps me to be accountable. If it's just something floating around in my brain, it's easy for me to dismiss it and be like, "Oh, I'll do that later." But if it's written down, then I know that it's something I need to be accountable to.
And I love you said that because I think that when people hear that like individuals like you and me, like we like systems and tech in that aspect, they think that we don't write things down, and we
Hmm.
do.
Oh, absolutely.
Like everything isn't just electronic. We have a balance of what, and I think it's understanding yourself, like knowing what's going to make it feel like it's real, like right now. So I'm connected to what I'm doing, connected to my goals, connected to my schedule. And sometimes it's just going to be checks and balances. Like I have a calendar on my wall. So on a glance, if I need to see, like, okay, do I have anything going on personal life? Or if I know I'm going to a networking event, I just want to be able to easily look at that. Yes, I can open up the app on my phone, but because everything is synced in my Google My Business, I'm not
Hmm.
Google My, but my Google Calendar, it's not. I mean, I can see when I have times available, but I can't easily just look to see what is on what day per
Right.
se, because you see like seven different things, and
Ex-
then I have like a physical whole like planner that I can write. These are the things I'm doing that day. Yes, I might have Asana, but the thing is like you have to know what are the things that's going to help you keep on task
Mm-hmm.
Because I would even say that sometimes with productivity and overwhelm is because we don't have clarity on what needs to get done.
Exactly. So one of the things that I, like you said, I use a combination of electronic and paper things, but like you said, when I have it blocked out on my paper calendar, I can see like where the gaps are and all of that, which is a little bit more difficult to do digitally. Like there are things out there, but I like to see it like, okay, for Monday I have this window, on Tuesday I have this window, and that just helps me mentally prepare for my week a little better when I'm doing my weekly planning. But I also use digital tools. I think they're great. Like you say, everything is synced to my Google Calendar, and I can quickly see, oh, I have this coming up today or that coming up today. So it's not like one or the other. It's about finding what works for you. What tools are you going to respect when it comes to scheduling out your day and getting the things done so you can maintain that productivity and balance. If you know you're not going to respect your written things, then maybe try some digital tools.
I love that. And so I would love to ask you, and with people you've spoken to in your past experiences, what are some common productivity challenges that solopreneurs face? And if you have any tips on how to overcome them.
Absolutely. So one of the things, especially if you're an agency owner where you're doing agency work, oftentimes we take on more work than we can handle, because if you're a solopreneur, then you're doing the heavy lifting yourself. You may have a VA or a contractor, but if you're doing the heavy lifting and you're caught up in client work, then that's when you can't really be the CEO. You can't be the visionary if you also being the worker. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
you're stuck as the technician if you familiar with the E Myth book, and you can't be the manager. And so one of the things, the Focus 48 helps with that routine, like dedicating that CEO time to the business. Also, just like I said, being firm with your cutoff time and your boundaries, because if you're not going to respect your boundaries, no one else will. You're just going to be pulled and pushed and putting out fires all day. And oftentimes that's where the exhaustion comes in, because we haven't clearly communicated when what days I'm going to take meetings. So this is one of the techniques, is the theme days. I'm only going to take client meetings on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The Mondays are dedicated to this, Wednesdays to this, Fridays may be dedicated to something else. But when you start to build these, what I call them containers, then you can start organizing and communicating those boundaries, so people know, oh, Carla's not taking me no Monday, so let me get on her calendar for Tuesday or Thursday. And you can start communicating that and getting people used to those containers and those themes for each day.
I love a theme day. And actually, I probably should really get back to it. I kind of do that a little bit right now. I was really, really big on it. Like, even I'm still doing it to an extent where certain days are just creative days where I don't really do any calls.
Right.
I'll go to like that one networking event on the Wednesday, and then after that, I zone out because too realizing like what are the things that takes away from your energy level. Like I know
Absolutely.
the days if I'm doing calls, I rather just head down, knock all the calls out that day, so then the
Right.
next day I don't have to talk to nobody because I
Right.
need that. Like personally, like I'm extroverted, but I have introverted tendencies, so I can't talk to people every single day because by Thursday I'm going to feel like a train wreck.
Right.
So one of the things I did want to ask before we start wrapping up is like how can like any tips that you might give a solopreneur on how to stay motivated um, and like overcome some of the like burnout feelings that may come up.
As I mentioned earlier, once you can get your life organized in a way that is, like you mentioned, energy efficient. Like if you know, like I'm like you, I can't take too many calls in a week or I'm going to be drained. I got to have that downtime so that I can operate in my creative brain. And so when you start to learn your energy cycles, like for years, I tried to be an early morning person because that's what they say, right? If you want to be successful, you got to get up early in the morning. I'm not a morning person. I tried it for years and beat myself up because even when I would get up, I wasn't productive. I was just kind of like up and just not doing anything. And so once I accepted that that wasn't a principle that was designed for me, I started to look at what times of the day am I most energized, and how can I structure my work around those energy cycles. So one of the things I have is an energy tracker that I give my clients to track their energy levels for about 3 days and see where the highs and lows are, so you can start organizing those important tasks around your energy level. If it's a low energy task, do it when your energy is low. Don't try to mix match it because you're trying to follow some corporate standard, of what was started by someone else. Find what works for you, and then you can start reserving your energy and being efficient with your energy, and that is going to directly impact your motivation. It's hard to be motivated when you're always exhausted. It's hard to be motivated when you're always behind the gun with client work and deliverables and this and that. It's hard to operate in that creative space that you need to move the business forward. So once you can start getting those things in line, you'll start to see your motivation coming back when you're not tired and exhausted and overwhelmed, and you can see how your business is going to grow, because now I can look at my business, I can look at the data, I can look at the numbers, and I can make decisions from a place of energy, energized and not depleted energy.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I think that's a great place to kind of like end, because I feel that we spoke about some of the things that people find themselves challenged with, and you gave them some really good tips. What for anyone that's interested in connecting with you, what I will do is I can put a link of any resource that you want for me to put inside of my bio. But if you want to share, how can people connect with you? Please let them know.
Absolutely. And one thing I want to say before I leave, like, there's 100 strategies for time management out there, right? We got the Pomodoro, we got, 80-20 rule, we got all of these things, the Eisenhower matrix, all of these tactics. But what is missing is some of the elements that I've talked about today. Like, what are the practicalities around all of these strategies that are out there? Like, you can find them everywhere, right? Everybody's talking about it, but they don't really talk about when you're burned out. The Pomodoro method ain't gonna really do nothing for you. You know what I mean? So we got to start figuring out, especially now. I think COVID really exposed us for what was really going on. So now we got to figure out how do we get our lives in alignment so that we can then use those other things to support us. But you can find me at I am Carla Erskine on Instagram. That's probably where I am the most. But like many others, I have taken a step back from a lot of social media and want to get back to those real life connections, just because that's when I feel the most energized, is when I'm doing that. But I love to have you join me over there. As again, it's I am Carla Erskine on Instagram.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so very much. I would love for anyone that's watching this recording to just comment. Definitely give her a follow. Reach out to her if you have questions on how to start applying this inside of your business. And again, I always like to have these conversations because sometimes entrepreneurship can feel very lonely, and we can feel as if we're the only ones going through it. We've all experienced some variety or flair of being overwhelmed, being burnt out, whatever you want to call it. But I thought that this can be a really great topic so that those of you that may be in that specific season right now, you can get a little bit of tips to be able to help moving forward. So thank y'all again for joining us on